the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers and its monthly author showcase. I am your host, Peter Stockwell. Authors Linda B. Myers and Heidi Hansen are visiting with us this month at the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television Studios. Linda and Heidi are the backbone and the brains of the Olympic Peninsula authors located in Clallam and Jefferson counties. We met when they came to Silverdale and participated in a book event at the Best Western Silverdale Beach Hotel a couple of years ago. Since then, we have crossed paths at other signing events. Welcome to our broadcast for the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers. It's nice to have you with us.
Nice to see you again.
Linda, let me start with you. Tell us about your background. What did you do before becoming a successful author?
Wow, and a successful author. I did most of my career in Chicago.
So you did live other than here on the Olympic Peninsula?
Yeah. I lived in Chicago until I couldn't stand the 6 feet of snow any longer. But I moved from Chicago to here. I was in marketing and advertising all of those years and moved here to actually have a beautiful place to write. So.
Yeah, and marketing and advertising is what we're all about.
It is now.
It is.
I retired from marketing and advertising to write, and I'm now in marketing and advertising.
No kidding. And that's one of the reasons we do this show is we've got to spread our names around and spread around who we are as authors in the Kitsap and Olympic Peninsula area, because there are hundreds of us.
There are.
Oh, it's just incredible. And so I'm happy with that. So when you say you've lived in other places, Chicago was your main hub?
Right, and then I moved to...
Get how I use that, Chicago hub?
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Got it. And then I moved to Washington State in the 90s, so I feel like I'm an old-timer here now.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Now, one of your books is about final days of life with your parents and your experiences with that. Kind of explain that, because we've got a lot of people out here who would have that or would like to have that kind of information. I know with my parents, my dad died 33 years ago and my mother died 4 years ago. Well, when my dad was dying, I had to help my mother.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, I had my father, my mother, and my husband all died in one form or another of assisted care, dementia care, or nursing home care. In 2009, my husband died, but that year I also retired from full-time work, and so it sort of created a perfect storm. I had the time and the emotional space to want to spend time by myself, and that sort of kick-started in or opened the logjam or whatever to writing a full-length novel. It is, the first one I wrote is Funhouse Chronicles. It's based on the experiences that I had sitting in those variety of senior care and sitting there and watching how the staff worked, how administrations worked, how the residents worked, how outside caregivers came in and made an impact on each other. A lot of the story is sad, a lot of it is hilarious. And I think that the book is a very good help for anybody who's facing it one day for themselves or for a loved one. And that's pretty much all of us, one way or another. So.
Oh yeah, eventually we all have to face the fact that we're mortal.
Yeah.
So this book is fictional.
It is a fictional recounting of the time.
But if your parents and your husband were still here and reading it, they'd say, oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah, we'd find ourselves. We'd find ourselves here.
I know. With one of my books, I had this little nugget of an idea. It was with motive, and I gave it to my ex-sister-in-law. And when I saw her in Easter last year, I asked her, "Well, did you recognize anybody?"
Is she speaking to you still, or?
Oh yeah. Matter of fact, we do speak to each other. My ex-wife and I don't, but that's neither here nor there. So when you wrote this book and you included basically the history of your parents and your husband, how did you make it all gel in such a way that it became this great fictional work?
Well, each of the...
And how people can still glean out of it all of that wonderful information?
The variety of experiences all became one person's life, with the other people that she, Lily is her name, Lily Gilbert, meet along her path, going from independent living to the need for a nursing home. So depending on where she is in her stage of life in there, what I learned from the other of the real characters in my life was how to fictionalize those stories and fit them to get together. So it's a very rich book in terms of a variety of different kind of experiences that would lead you to need nursing care. Those characters, oddly enough, didn't die when the book ended in my head. And they didn't die. And I thought, now what am I going to do with all of these characters that are around and they're...
Yeah. Characters get in the way, don't they?
Yeah, and they had such personalities, especially an old man that was in the book who'd come in. He was a retired PI, and he was big, and one of the other people said he looks like a bear. And so he got the nickname in the nursing home of Bear. And because he was a retired PI, he liked to set up different kinds of cases, like the case of the missing laundry and a variety of things. He became a very living human being to me. And when the book ended, he didn't. And that's where I started then writing a series about PI Bear Jacobs. And the other people in that book are people he met in the nursing home. They're all seniors. They all are mentally acute. They all feel marginalized, as many, many seniors do in a lot of ways. That's our most educated group of people, and they're sidelined in so many ways. And so with his background as a PI, I had to start a mystery series with the four of them solving cases that the Washington State Sheriffs definitely need their help with.
Well, of course.
So,
yeah, I mean,
they need that help. So.
Yeah. So how many books in the mystery series do you have now?
There are 3 completed mysteries and a 4th that should be out, I'd say, in October.
Okay. So it's somewhere in the editing and formatting mode?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And that's interesting because we do like to write mysteries. And a lot of people do like to read what we put out there, which is fortunate.
I didn't know that about myself. I read mysteries, but I guess I never thought I would write one. But I have found the older I get and the more I write, the more murder and mayhem appeals to me. So,
isn't that funny?
Yeah. So I do, when people think about how would you do life differently, who knows what might have happened with me when I was a younger person. So.
Yeah, I get that. As I say to people, I used to teach middle school, I fear nothing.
Yeah.
My job was to torture middle school students, and now I just kill people. But I don't practice first.
Yeah.
It's all just because of the mayhem, as you put it, the mayhem and chaos that's going on in my head right now. So marketing is a challenge. You have a history in marketing. How do you help writers who are trying to get their books known? What advice can you give us?
Almost everything I learned after 40 years in marketing, and I was pretty good at it, I did pretty well in it, had lots of clients, but almost all of it is irrelevant today for writers.
Is that because of the internet? Or because of...
Not in some ways, but not so much that. It has more to do with the revolution going on in the publishing business. And that marketing right now for writers is very much marketing in the Wild West. And you don't have research studies that have been able to follow everything to a conclusion where you say, if you do A and you do C and you do E, you will have a book. Everyone that I know and everyone that I know who succeeds finds a different path to do it. And that path may lead to failure for everyone else. I think that it's tremendously important to learn all you can, to try different ways of marketing, to find what works for you. But if you think that's going to happen on day one, if you think that you're going to be the next 50 Shades or the next Martian, probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, my friend Bobby took 20 years and he's finally up over 5 million books.
Yeah.
So it takes a while for us to become overnight success. Yeah.
Yep.
Heidi, you're located in Sequim.
I am.
And what you do there before diving into this world of books?
Well, if you go back, I was raised in Northern California and I grew up in Silicon Valley and I worked in the computer industry in marketing.
Another
So,
one.
yes.
We're going to keep you two around.
So I worked in marketing for almost 20 years and then I bought a gift basket business and I created and sold gift baskets to the same high-tech clients. So it was quite a hoot to do all that. Then I decided to move to Sequim, and I wanted to live in a small town. I wanted to live by the water, and I decided to go into real estate. So I did real estate in Sequim for 15 years.
Yeah, I can see you having success up there. It's a lot of people move up to Sequim, senior citizens especially, escaping all of the
Well,
rain elsewhere.
they put a new definition on senior because they're coming up there retired at 45.
Yeah, that's those IT people out of Silicon Valley. Yeah. But Sequim's quite a writing community too, as I understand it.
There are a lot of, I want to say, intelligent, accomplished people who choose to move to Sequim, and there are a lot of writers among them. So,
do you think that you would be able to someday bring some of those writers down here and interview them?
yes, we could.
Well, we'll talk about that at the end of this.
Yes, we could.
Because we like to have that happen. We like to have our people who we interview bring in their friends who they can interview.
Okay.
And it'll work. So what have you written? I understand you have collections of short stories.
I have written a lot of short stories, and someone defined my short stories when I was mumbling about trying to say what they were, and they said, your stories are like a slice of life. And I like that, because that's what they are. And I did a collection, and I like to call this this is the January book with 31 stories. This is the February book with 28.
And so we're going to have a March one with 31 and an April with 30.
I don't know. I think that the next one's probably got about 40 stories in it. So it's, and I could have called them, there's a grain of truth in it. Yet it's just, they're just little slices of life, and they're very short, less than 1,000 words.
So you take all of these ingredients that you have, put them in a bowl, mix them up, and make a book.
Yeah.
And you got to cook it.
Yeah.
You got to cook it.
What if?
Well, now, you two are the founding members of Olympic Peninsula Authors?
Yeah. Let me just back up a little bit.
All right, back up a
so
little
you
bit.
can see how we got there. So Linda and I both come from different parts of the country, but we're both in marketing, and we get involved in different writing groups. And our paths cross a couple of times, and we ended up in the same critique group. But we also get handed off and asked to step up and become the host for the Fourth Friday open mic readings in Sequim, which had been going on for about 4.5 years or something when we took over. So now we are the hosts to all these people who we are trying to get to come together and do these. And we're amazed at the talent that's out there. And these people, some of them are published, some are not yet published. And so we start thinking, what could we do to help these people? What could we do to help put their works out into the public and move them along? So we form Olympic Peninsula Authors.
And it's been around how long?
3 years.
Yeah,
3 years.
So the first thing that we did was we sent out invitations to some of those writers, and we put together an anthology volume with 14 different authors. And then a year later, we thought, well, we should do it again. But this time we sent it out to the whole public, saying whoever wants to submit to us.
Yeah.
And we published the book with 30 authors.
And these are the three that you have
That's
right
correct.
now.
Right.
And this third one is one that, this is the proof for the book. It will be ordered tomorrow in the final condition. And it has 31 local authors.
Is that March? I'm just kidding.
No, that's back to my book.
That's back to cake.
Great. And these are 31 authors that live up in the Olympic area, Olympic Peninsula area.
Yes.
So with your 31 authors and our, I don't know, what do we have, 75 or some authors that we've contacted here in the Kitsap area, we have a lot of authors.
We do.
Because we have more than are what in the books, too. I mean, the monthly open mic readings, a great many of the people there may not be published, but they will take a 5-minute period or whatever to come down and share their poetry, whatever it is they want to share. And we think that we have around 60 folks who come, between 30 and 60, depending on the month. And so, and it's a growing audience. It's free, and it's been sort of a marvelous thing in our life to see how many people, you know, will come and show up and want to and feel comfortable to share, you know, because it's a nurturing atmosphere. This actually started. We'll go back to marketing here a little bit. This started as a marketing project as well as a writer's project. Because our thought on the very first book was, we have people here who are writing well who will probably never be able to publish a traditionally published book. But if we publish it for them and we help them sell it, it gives somebody a taste for what those particular writers are doing and may drive an audience back to them and books that they've now self-published and have online. So Heidi and I spend a fair amount of our own time marketing these books at a variety of farmers markets, crafts fairs, whatever happens to be going on, where the argument that local writers belong with local artists.
Yeah.
And we do belong there, but
well, that's
so
why
many
we
people
ended
don't
up,
go.
That's why we ended up being in Silverdale at the Beach Hotel as local authors and such. And then you were at the Peninsula Home Show this last January, was it?
February.
And February. Well, it couldn't have been February. I was headed down to Peru on a cruise ship in February. So I think it was January we did that. And then you were at the Kitsap Arts and Crafts, which was up in Kingston last month.
Right.
And
Right.
so yeah, I get the idea of what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And of course, that's why we have a TV show, is to do the very same thing, is to get our names out there and have people understand that we are here. Any famous authors up there? I mean, we have a few around here that if I mention names, people say, oh yeah, I've read those books. We
do have, but they tend to be fairly reclusive, you know, but they are. Last month, was it? Aaron Elkin and his wife, Charlotte Elkin, both of whom write mysteries and have for a very long time. They both came to the Fourth Friday and gave a lot of helpful instruction to people who are a variety of places in the publishing timeline.
Well, that is one of the interesting things about publishing, is that I myself have my own publishing company and I publish my own work. And so therefore I have to do all of the work, which is, of course, write the book in the first place.
Exactly.
Get it edited, which means I hire my editors and get my beta readers. I also do editing, but you know how it is. My eyes are only going to see so much before I glaze over and say, I skip a word because my head says it's there and my book says it's not. And then of course we do the covers, and some people will have their covers designed. I design my own. And then the formatting of the interior of the book. And I'm in the process of learning how to do that to make it actually look like a book. And I do have...
circles back to how marketing is quite a bit different for marketing your own books these days than pretty much anything else, because you really are wearing a lot of different hats to get the book from, you know, soup to nuts.
Yeah. So that leads to the next question for either of you. Who publishes your books?
Why, the Olympic Peninsula authors publish these, and then Heidi and
We each have our own publishing companies.
So you work like I do. We have our own publishing company, and we do all our own work. Yeah.
yeah.
And actually, I find it a lot of fun. I'm doing this as, I never expect to be famous or rich or anything. I'm just having fun. And if that last part, famous and rich, comes about, okay.
It would be okay.
It'll be okay.
Yeah.
I won't throw it away. So, yeah.
But look what you and the people that you work with have been able to do in terms of trying to build an audience. And everybody, that's that marketing in the Wild West. You gotta try different things that are right for you. I write a monthly column in the Squim newspaper, and it's a humor column. It's primarily about aging, and there's why I'm doing it. You know, because if I write that column, it indirectly feeds back into book sales for me. Heidi, as a realtor, knows every human being in in Squim, and has done a dandy job of marketing through email and so forth too. So, you know, it's whatever you have and can do.
Whatever you're comfortable doing.
And there's absolutely, you have to throw in the face-to-face. Because I will tell you that we sit in a booth at the farmer's market on Saturdays, and we did, what, a week and a half ago in pouring rain the whole day. But people come up and talk to us. And whether it's a pity buy or not, I don't know, but they end up always buying a book.
Yeah.
So, and when we do that, we're back to our marketing, because we're not just sitting there selling her books, my books, and the Olympic Peninsula author books. We have some 30 other titles that we're selling for other local writers in our area. So we're trying to get that out for them, because it's unusual for writers to be marketers.
Well, yes, most writers are introverts. They like to just, I'm going to go sit in my little hole here, and I'm going to be very quiet and do my manuscript, and then I will go give it to my publisher, and then don't bother me. I'll write the next book. You take care of the rest of it. Whereas there are those of us who, like I said earlier, I taught middle school. I fear nothing. And so I go out there, and I just spent last month 5 days at the Kitsap County Fair. From 10 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. And, you know, we market books at that. And then I also spent 3 days down on the Bremerton waterfront at the Bremerton Blackberry Festival. And we had a lot of success there as well. And this next month, in October, we're going to be doing our event at the Kitsap Mall, and on the 4 Saturdays. And so, I think we got about 15 authors coming each Saturday. Some of us will be there all 4 Saturdays. Some of us won't be there all 4 Saturdays. But yes, marketing is different. Now, in publishing companies that you own, I am my own publisher. I have only one client, and I get to look at that idiot every day in the morning when I'm looking in the mirror. Do you have others that you publish their work?
I do not at this point. I'm not saying that I would not, but it would take special circumstances. But I do love doing the interior design for a book, so I would do that for other people.
Yeah. Okay, so you have services that you could provide to someone who is going to publish their book. What program do you use?
I use Word.
You use Word and get it set up that way? Who prints your books?
We have them printed through KDP.
Okay. And you also,
Right.
Heidi or Linda, you have yours printed through KDP?
I have them printed through KDP. I have someone I work with to develop the covers, because I'm no designer, and recognize that about myself, and I'm really grumpy with bad typography, so, you know, I need somebody to do my covers for me. Because my best friend does a bang-up job on interiors, we trade back and forth. I edit her books, and she does the interiors for mine.
So you're quite the team.
Yeah.
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 How
We're
organized?
formidable.
Yeah, we're pretty awesome.
I cannot deny, I cannot, never mind. How organized is OPA? Now, by that I mean, do you have a license as a nonprofit? Do you have board of directors, presidents, vice president? I mean, is it like, for instance, the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, which is in Issaquah?
Mm-hmm.
That's fairly highly organized.
Right.
Dues collections, the whole works. Are you at that point?
We are not. We are about as loosey-goosey as you can get.
Organic is another word for it.
Oh, that's
Well, we
a better
could go
word.
with that.
Organic.
That's kind of how we are.
Right.
We are as organic as you can get because
Right.
there's no reason for us to actually want to become any more organized than we are. And when we meet on our first and third Wednesdays of the month over at Spiro's in West Bremerton, there may be 3 or 4 of us. There may be, we've had upwards of 12 and 15.
Mm-hmm.
And it just depends upon who wants to show up on any particular given time
Right.
period, you know.
Right.
It's whatever it is.
We haven't really figured out how to get a lot more organized, in that our goal for the OPA is to help writers at the variety of places in their career. We haven't really been able to figure out how to make dues work per se, because everybody would need a almost different level of help. What we do when we're selling or selling the books at markets and so forth is we take a percentage of the sale, and that percentage goes back toward helping the pay for the fee of being at the shows or whatnot. So
Okay, so that's how you collect. When you collect money for CLAW, when you collect money for OPA, like I collect money for CLAW, I've usually fronted our events, and then I have the authors pay me back, and I've had no problem with that.
right.
And I've recovered all the money that I've put out, except for what I had to put out for myself. So there are no profits. When these books do sell, what happens to all that money? Some of it you said you put back into shows, some of it you take for, and of course there are the expenses of actually producing the book.
I guess one of the things that we do is we actually are looking at a month-long launch party. So we actually we'll put on 4 events. So the first is the launch, where we rent a really nice facility and all of our authors are there. And last year it was so wonderful because they felt the community of other writers and had everybody, all the authors, sign their books. So that was a very special event. And then we'll put on 3 public readings so that all those authors will have an opportunity to read their works in public.
Okay.
Just maintaining, as you know, a show. We started with, you know, Mom has a barn. I mean, Heidi owned a booth from her real estate days, so we haul that old booth out and set it up. But
I got
you
3
have,
of those pavilions.
yeah, you have a variety of expenses like that all the time. We finally really broke the bank this year and got a tiny storage area to keep everything in. We had to buy display units and so forth, and the people who are working on these books understand that that is part of how we're going to be able to market for them. But we have had to cover those expenses through the sales of the books.
Yeah, I get that.
So there's not like all that much left over.
No, and I'm sure there's hardly any money because of the cost. I mean, I know from my experience being in this writing business for the last 10 years that the amount of money it takes to produce a book and to market and get out there will just about be broken even by the sales of the books themselves. And right now I'm at the point where I'm about breaking even. So I
You're
feel
gonna
almost like Amazon, you know, where
Yeah.
they say, oh, we never make any money.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm almost at that point where I say, well, I don't make any money, but yeah, I'm making a couple of bucks here and there.
And you're at your tipping point, and it's just
Yeah,
going to
that's
be
right.
great from now on.
Well, it becomes the part on the advertising. Now, do you pay for any advertising? Do you buy Amazon or KDP advertising?
I'm experimenting with my own books now, not with that, but with the books that I write. I'm experimenting now with the Amazon ad products, the click per word. Up until now, I mean, I started self-publishing in 2011, so I'm a geezer in the self-publishing world, I guess. Back then, for me, the kind of promotion sites like BookBub worked very well. Not so much now. You know, first off, everybody has 1,000 ebooks on their Kindles that they'll never get around to reading. So that is a good way to get a quick hit of money out there, maybe, but you're not building anything long term for your name that way.
So your books are all ebooks too?
Oh yeah,
books.
yeah. I started only with ebooks.
Are in terms of sales, do you make more sales on ebooks or as print books?
Ebooks for me.
Okay.
Print books for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine are print books, but I keep getting that little paycheck from Amazon and KDP. They keep sending me money, so I'm all right with that. Many writers set a time for writing every day, and we have aspiring authors out there who might learn from your routine. What's a typical day look like for you two?
Well, I am an early morning person, so I start with coffee and the New York crossword puzzle. And if my brain can get through that puzzle, then I'm ready to write. So I write in the mornings. By noon, I'm done. And in that period of time, I've maybe written new material for a couple of hours, edited material, edited material for about an hour, and spent an hour on marketing. So I'm very much a part-time writer that way. I know there are people who are doing 8 hours. For me, a 4-hour day is what I devote to the writing.
Very good. And Heidi, what do you do?
I get up early as well, and I like to just kind of putter because my entire life has been get up and go, 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 go. So I like to not go in the morning. But during that time, I usually think up some story that I want, and it will get written during the day, not any specific time. I don't like being held to any time. And then the last thing I do at night is print that story out. So it's sitting on my desk in the morning printed, because that's that really important edit when I look at it first thing in the morning.
That first edit, yeah.
Well,
so you edit each chapter or each section that you write before you go on to the next write?
No, just whatever I've been working on, that's that time I want to see it that next morning after I've had it, because my brain just churns through it at night and decides, oh, that wasn't the end. There's a whole new twist.
Characters. They're getting into this, aren't they? They just haunt us.
Yes.
All right. If a book club or other organization wanted to get a hold of you for coming to speak to and teach, whatever it is that you wanted to teach them, how would they contact you?
Olympic Peninsula Authors at gmail.com.
That's the easiest way? For the whole organization. How about you individually?
That's probably the best way to get either one of us, just that one email, because we both have access to it.
Okay. We'll float that across your head so people will see it. And then we'll put it at the end in the credits as well. All right. Do either of you have other book projects you're working on currently?
You bet. Always.
Another slice of cake?
Well, yes, although I am toying with the idea of not calling it that, calling it something like Short Takes. That, and I have a memoir that I've been writing for the last 10 years, which I keep wanting to say, oh, let it go, put it away, stop working on it. But then when I talk to someone about the content of it, they say, oh, please publish it, get it out there. Because I have a different story to tell. I tell the story of a woman married to a man who chooses after 20 years of marriage to become a woman. So, from the woman's point of view.
Very good. Yeah. Yes, I would say that's probably something that should be out there for the world to read. Okay. What do you have working on?
Well, my newest is Fog Coast Runaway, so I've got to bring this forward so somebody out here can see Fog Coast, save big on Fog Coast Runaway. This is my first historical. I've never done historical fiction before, and this is set in the 1890s on the Oregon coast.
Did a lot of research for this?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Just because you want to make sure the historical part of the fiction is accurate.
Exactly. And people who know their shipping history or their lighthouse history or whatever it is, they know it. So it took me a long time. I enjoyed it very much. But you're looking at, well, for me anyway, about a 2-year commitment to do it. So if I were to do another historical, it would probably be set in the 1890s on the Oregon coast. You know?
Just because you have all the background.
Yeah, that I've got down pat. And I'm currently just finishing, as I mentioned earlier, in the works, 4th Bear in the series. So
Is Bear going to go on quite a while? Can he bear up?
Bearing up. Oh, it was an unbearable pun. You know, they can go on forever. I don't know that I can, but they beat me up. If I go like a year without writing a bear, they start.
They the authors, or are they the readers, or are they the characters?
Well, a little bit of both, but the characters.
Yeah, the characters.
Yeah.
They do haunt us.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the Olympic Peninsula Authors has published these anthologies that you have right here in front of me. And I understand that the latest version is this one, and it's not out yet, but it's coming soon, as they say. What's in it? And would you like to read any of these?
I'd love to. Actually, I'll read one of my own excerpts because it's an excerpt out of this book. So
Okay.
I'd be happy to do that. It's what I put into the anthology. So
Very good.
I'd
Okay.
be happy to do that for you.
Very good.
Okay?
And Heidi, do you have anything in there yourself?
Yeah, I do. I have 4 short stories in here.
Okay, would you like to read one of them?
I do.
Very good. Well, we're going to then break away from what we normally have done by closing off all of this, and we're actually going to have them read. So at this time period, I'm going to introduce Linda Myers, who is going to read her anthology contribution.
I'm going to do a reading from Fog Coast Runaway, which is my entry into the new anthology. In this book, it's a youngster, a 12-year-old girl, has had to leave home because her brother is getting to be more than just a bully, and she's afraid of him. Her father works on the Tillamook Rock Lighthouse, so he's not there ever at home to take care of her. So this begins on chapter 2, where she's already on the run. April 1893. Adelia rushed along a deer path through the Douglas fir and cedars. Blackberry brambles and maple vine reached out to trip her, but she ripped through them. Grief, anger, and fear fueled her flight. Although she'd never been fearful of the wilderness before, Adelia was spooked by every forest noise now. She needed a safe place for the night, somewhere her brother wouldn't find her if he did hunt for her. It took a while with her brow furrowed in deep thought. She picked a blackberry bramble from the end of her long ash blonde braid. At last, the perfect place flashed into her memory. It was another 2 miles or so to the old dairy barn. Its backside shoved up against a sharp, rising hill, so the door faced south, away from most winds. Adelia had seen it before when she passed by this way. Wild rose bushes not far from the barn provided her cover to await the farmer who would no doubt soon appear to do the evening milking. When he arrived, he seemed a hardy fellow, cheeks and nose red above a massive dark beard of curly wild hair. Adelia snuck to the outside wall of the barn and peered through an accommodating chink. The farmer burst into the old settler, singing to his trio of Holsteins as he began to milk. No longer the slave of ambition, I laugh at the world and its shams as I think of my pleasant condition, surrounded by acres of clams. except he modified the last line to surrounded by acres of teats. Then he guffawed to his trio. Squeezing a teat of a cow before him, he shot a stream of milk to a ratter cat perched on her back haunches, awaiting her treat. Adelia clasped a hand over her mouth to smother a giggle, and the cows covered for her. They mooed for the farmer to hurry and unload their swollen udders. As he left the barn, he called, "Good night, Milky, Clara, and Clover. I thank you all for all." Adelia watched while he moved the heavily laden pail into his cold store, deep in the side of the same hill that supported the barn. She did not know how cheese or butter was made, but she knew the milk would soon be one or the other. The thought made her hungry, hungrier. When she felt sure the farmer would not return that evening, she snuck into the barn. She knew these particular cows, having petted one in their pasture on the earlier day. Two rolled their eyes and moved away, but the mostly white bossy came close from a scratch around, for a scratch around the horns, then behind the ears. "Good girl, Milky," Adelia said, thinking that was a fine name for her. The cow gave her a raspy lick on the arm with a sandpaper tongue, causing her a second rare giggle. The others settled and accepted Adelia's presence. At least they didn't bawl for the farmer's attention. She found a space between the barn wall and a pile of scratchy rope. She tamped down a small mat of clean, dry straw, removed a horse blanket from a peg, and spread it over the nest. Using her valise as a pillow, she pulled her knees to her chest and covered herself with her cape. Her hidey hole was just large enough for a child, and when the ratter cat came to curl up there too, Adelia was warm enough to feel drowsy. Everything ached, spirit and body. When she thought of her brother, the ache spread in the way of a disease building in malignancy. She was forsaken by parents and sibling alike. She was a nobody, worse, a nothing. But that line of thinking would get her nowhere, and she whispered as much to the cat. Besides, the farmer had given her an idea. She now knew exactly what she would do the next day. A one-day plan was enough to help her sleep, that and the restorative purring of A one-day plan was enough to help her sleep, that and the restorative power of a purring cat. The growl in her belly awakened Adelia. It disturbed the cat, too, who stretched then disappeared on its early rounds. It was still dark, but Adelia knew she must leave before the farmer returned for the morning milking. She picked up her few things and replaced the horse blanket. In the process, her motion alerted the cows, who'd forgotten she was there. The two skittish ones mooed, first low, then loud. No amount of shushing appeased them, so Adelia ran from the barn, smack into the farmer. He held a lantern high, but dropped an empty milk pail and grabbed her wrist. See here," he blustered in a startled voice, repeating it again as she squirmed. He struggled not to drop the oil lantern so close to the barn. Her wrist was very small and his hand very large. It was as if he couldn't quite tighten down, so she slipped free. Adelia ran with the speed of a young deer, her legs leaping through a field of new corn. It was dark, but she knew there would be woods soon, in any direction. Behind her, she heard another "see here" and plaintive mooing. Then all was quiet, except the chit-chat of the earliest birds. When she reached the safety of the trees, Adelia darted under a cedar, its lowest boughs dipping to the ground. She sucked down great gulps of air, thinking she was catching her breath. But the gulps didn't stop, nor did her eyes stop watering. Beneath the massive tree, the child mourned for the love she'd never had, for the few comforts she'd lost, and for the many fears she'd found. But crying was a waste of time. It was a simple fact and a childish thing she could no longer afford. She wiped her eyes on a dress sleeve. Adelia's stomach forced her out of the cedar den, its noisy protest for food becoming more important than safety.
Thank you very much, Linda. That was a very nice reading.
That's great.
And so now, Heidi, you get your turn.
Excellent. I write short stories, and a good way for me to explain what my stories are about is to read you a synopsis of some of the stories that are in this book. Hazel Williams has a gripe with the U.S. Postal Service that leads to a run-in on mailboxes in the little town of Little Gap. A search for love. A search for love online results in an adventure in dating that has fairy tale ending, but it's not what you think. William, a young husband and father, disappeared during the summer of saucers. What happened 70 years later is even eerier. When 9-year-old Cora retaliates by stealing a tetherball, she sets in motion a series of events that leads her into harm's way. Avid environmentalist Chuck turns to an eco-friendly paint with disastrous results. A real estate agent steps out of bounds in a vacant house while pursuing a $1 million sale. Now, I will read Boomerang from the Volume 3 anthology. It wasn't because of a geography lesson, but the distribution of a toy that I became aware of Australia. The boomerang was an obtusely angled slice of wood which, when thrown, would spin back to the thrower. Totally dependable, repeatable. It was awesome. It was distributed by Whammo, the same people who brought us the hula hoop and the frisbee. Advertised on television, I gazed in awe at its return to the thrower over and over again. Did this really work? What was its magical power? Could anyone learn to do it? That Christmas, my sister Karen unwrapped the brightly wrapped box that held a boomerang. It was the best present under the tree, though several were more expensive. Outside, my father scanned the instructions, then hurled the toy into the air. It flew across the driveway and far into the 10-acre orchard, which was our backyard. We watched in amazement. It turned and came back, but fell short of returning to Dad's hands. Over and over he practiced as we children stood begging at his feet. Let me, it's mine, I got it from Santa. He had to take a step forward, hand outstretched, before it came right to him. That's when he handed it to Karen. I should add that my father is right-handed, as are all of us. Karen is the lone lefty in the family. Her toss did not follow the same trajectory. If Dad's went left, hers went right. And instead of turning and coming back, hers fell from the air and landed in the dirt, far down the path into the orchard. We raced out to retrieve it. Dad yelled, "Throw it back, towards me." Karen looked at the toy, turning it over to see if there was a "this side up" instruction. She shrugged her shoulders and hurled it toward Dad. We waited, watching for the boomerang to turn and come back. Again, it went in a straight path, right into Dad's shins. He was hopping mad and retreated to the house. "Let me try," I whined. She glowered at me, but handed it over. I stood like Dad and tried in every way to repeat what I had seen him do. I tossed the boomerang, and as I prayed for it to make the return flight, it did. Karen stomped her feet and tore it out of my hands. She dashed it to the ground and kicked it. 2 younger sisters picked it up and threw it. Not the same care or precision. When Paula tried, the damn thing came right back to her. Karen had enough and grabbed it. "It's mine," she said. With boomerang in hand, she tromped off into the middle of the orchard. "Leave me alone," she shouted back, should anyone consider following her. At dinner, Dad asked Karen if she had any luck in getting the boomerang to return. She looked down, moving her food around on her plate, and said she had lost it. After breakfast the next morning, we formed a search party, weaving our way through the trees, eyes downcast, but sometimes looking upward into the branches. We did not find it. In the spring, the orchardist was busy. He needed to cultivate the ground and get ready for irrigation. In turning the soil, he spied the boomerang. "Karen, Karen," he yelled as he jumped off the tractor in the driveway. "I found it." In his hands, he clutched the boomerang. Karen took it and scoffed her way around the back of the barn. Bad mood was written all over her, so we kept clear. At dinner, Paula announced that John had found Karen's boomerang. Dad said, "Karen, we'll go have another practice after dinner." Karen glowered. I threw it, and it went up on the barn roof. Now there was a place none of us went. In the summer, the cherry plum tree was full of fruit, small cherry-sized plums. When Grandmother visited, she made jam. "Girls, climb up on the roof and get me some bucketfuls," she instructed. It was easy to climb up on the abandoned chicken coop and next to the barn. I put the ladder in a place and went up. Paula and Darcy followed, each with a bucket, which we filled with only the best of the fruit. If it was squishy or the birds had got to it first, we left it or kicked it to the ground. With 3 full buckets, Granny would have plenty. I climbed down with 1 bucket, and then I did it 2 more times. The younger girls were good pickers, but too small to handle the bucket and the ladder. On seeing me come in, Mom said, "Did you clean off the roof?" I shook my head. "Take the broom and sweep it. No reason to leave all that up there to rot." I dragged the broom and climbed the ladder 1 more time. I swept the roof, pushing the leaves, fruit, and other debris down to the ground. Where the tree branches tangled in the roof of the barn, I saw the boomerang. That was the upside to having to pick the cherries and clean the roof. I couldn't wait to show Karen. She took 1 look at it and dissolved into tears. I followed her as she raced up the stairs to the bedroom we shared. "I hate that stupid thing," she cried. "I'll help you," I said. "No, I hate it. I buried it in the orchard, and John found it. I threw it up on the roof where no one could find it, and I found it." She glared at me. "I guess you can see that it does work. It keeps coming back to you."
Wow, those are great stories. I'm glad you were able to come and read those to us.
Thank you.
I appreciate it a great deal. Well, I want to thank you, Linda and Heidi, for what you have done and what you've shared with us in this literary world, and coming out to record this show.
Our pleasure.
And we're really glad to have you here. And I look forward to continuing to work with you, and hopefully you can come to the October event, and we'll find out if you can pick any of those Saturdays and show up and do that. And I look forward to following your endeavors on the peninsula, because I think CLAW and OPA have very similar goals and missions, and so therefore we should collaborate a little bit. And
Be great.
as part of the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers, I do invite you and your authors to participate in what we do, and in any of our upcoming events or even events that we set up for next year. And in the future, bring them down here, and we will have you host and feature those authors that are trying to write books up in the Port Townsend, Sequim, Forks, Port Angeles area,
Right.
and even out in the outskirts and the rural areas. We would enjoy having you as members of our group as well, and we would like to do it. I would also like to thank all of our viewers for tuning into the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television and viewing this Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers production. I also wish to thank the BCAT staff on the cameras and in the director's chair. Our broadcasts are scheduled for Saturday evenings at 6 p.m. on Wave Cable Channel 3 and Comcast Channel 12. You can also view a live stream on the BCAT website at bkat.org at 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Keep in touch with our social media and author web pages to discover where you can meet local authors and artists. CLAW shows can be viewed also on YouTube through Blue Forge Productions. When you go there and you call up the Blue Forge Productions YouTube channel, search for Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers, and all of our work historically for the last 3 years is on that particular channel. Many authors have attended several events across the West Sound region this last year. We just got finished with the Kitsap Fair and Stampede and the Bremerton Blackberry Festival, both of which were very highly successful. And in each of the 4 Saturdays next month in October, we're going to be at the Kitsap Mall for Book Month, and authors will be present to tell about their works and to read from selections of their books. Pick up a brochure this month or early next month to see who will be present and reading from their books. They will be there from 12 noon to about 6 p.m. And the Kitsap and Olympic Peninsulas are a wealth of vibrant and popular writers of fiction and nonfiction books. And I hope everyone has a pleasant evening and a productive and fascinating week. And until next Saturday, I am Peter Stockwell with the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers, in conjunction with the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television. Good night.